Well, hi everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Sunday afternoon. It's 5:15 Eastern Time, and after watching the Giants win a game that it was if a team ever tried harder to lose a game, that was it. I don't know whether it was uh, the fact that the Giants won by accident or that the Bears. To me, it even makes the Bears look worse. That they were pretty much handed the game on a silver platter and couldn't win it. Very, I'm just very sad. Anyway, the Jets are on now and they're leading, and we'll just leave that alone. Okay, big welcome to everybody. Tonight, we've got our YouTube regulars jumping on here, including Mirtha Gunter in Western North Carolina with what was a beautiful day for her. Meanwhile, for me here on Long Island and in the New York area, especially from New York City north and east, it was not good today. Not that the rain did end, but it was just a miserable afternoon with low clouds, fog. Temperatures did manage to get up into the upper 50s and low 60s, but it's not as if you could do anything outside. And now, of course, it's dark and we await for Monday morning to come. We do have some weather going on tonight, some residual impacts from the Central Plains, upper Midwest storm that has also been producing severe weather. It's been particularly interesting to watch the severe weather that's been going on in northern areas here as opposed to the areas in the south. You kind of expect it with the southern part of the system, but we had tornadoes in Illinois yesterday, and we still actually have a risk of severe weather going on this evening in parts of northeastern Ohio, northwest West Pennsylvania, and southwestern New York State. And that is with the upper low, the strong upper low that's moving eastward. And if you look at the radar signature back around Chicago, you can see that definite swirl there. So you're talking about a very strong unstable feature of aloft, and that is moving some showers and storms now into the area of slight risk. Also, we've got an ongoing tornado watch, and that's in the southeast and southeastern Georgia and a small portion of the southwestern corner of South Carolina. And an area of marginal risk that goes all the way up to the North Carolina coast. So there will be some convective action here during the evening hours. If you're watching from that area, please bear in mind that it is 5:17 Eastern time. So if you're watching this on a replay later on, it is obviously dated. So be sure to check your latest warnings from your local National Weather Service office, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. So that is what's happening this evening. Otherwise, there really isn't too much else going on. We're just sort of waiting for this occluded front to move on through and get out of here and finally start weather conditions improving. And as I said, at least from the standpoint of my local radar, you can see it here, there's nothing going on here at the moment. Although there is some very light rain and drizzle still showing up in some coastal areas based on some of the observations below the radar antenna. So we're going to go to the surface map here and take a look at what's happening tonight. The big problem today was this warm front that did not make it as far north as you would have liked it to. And this is always a problem with warm fronts any time of year. They usually are a big problem in the spring because that's when you've got the cold ocean at play. We've got a warmer ocean relative to the land at this point. In the spring, it's the other way around. And the map from the last surface plot is from 1 o'clock this afternoon. The new surface map should be out shortly, but I don't know if it'll be out in time for this live stream. But you can see where the warm front is just lying just south of Long Island across central New Jersey. So from there southward, we have temperatures in the 50s and 60s, upper 50s and lower 60s. And then you start to go to the north, you see reports of fog, more of a southeast wind or hardly any wind, while the winds on the south side of the warm front are there to the southwest. And it's not really strongest warm front in the world. Is this system, this storm system now? You've got a low sitting in Lake Huron, getting all stretched out and weakening. We're kind of waiting for the low that's at the point of occlusion. When we talk about the point of occlusion, the occluded front is the purple front that runs from the primary low and then loops back around into western New York. And then at the point where you've got the warm front, the occluded front, and the cold front, that is called the triple point. So that is the low at the point of occlusion. That is going to become the new main low as that moves on to the northeast, and that'll eventually just absorb everything to the west, and you'll start to see the winds shift around, and you'll bring in the drier air that is waiting. It's just going to take a little bit of time and work. You still got northeast winds and north winds up throughout the western lakes and the plain states, where temperatures are in the 20s and 30s and even some teens. As you move back into the Dakotas, in areas that got snow, down into Nebraska, southern South Dakota, northwestern Iowa, still getting a little bit of snow falling here, or at least they were earlier today, as the low is getting, as you can see, look at the isobar here that runs across Lake Michigan, and gets all stretched out. So that's usually when you're starting to see that, and you've got, you know, this occluded low, you're going to get that main the main system there, the lead system starts to fall apart and begins to transfer energy over to the low that's developing at the point of occlusion. The watches and warnings, I just wanted to leave up. This was from earlier today when we had much more widespread winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories that are up. So I'll freshen it up. That was as of 10 o'clock this morning. So you can see all the warnings and warnings and advisories that are up were up for the Central Plains and the upper Midwest are pretty much done, with the exception of a few left in southeastern South Dakota, a little small area in Kansas there, and on up into northeastern Wisconsin around Green Bay, and also in, northwestern Wisconsin. You've got a tornado watch and flood watches up from the Florida Panhandle and down and through southeastern Alabama, southwestern Georgia, and out over to the coast. With the brownish area there, that you see, whatever that looks like, a yellowish brown. Those are special marine warnings that have been issued. Again, this is as of 5/22. Let me just take the opportunity at this time before we go on, and you guys can watch the radar while I bring this up. I want to give a big welcome first off to those of you who have joined and are watching from my weather app, which is available for folks who have Android devices. Okay. And the app really works well for the geographic area for New York, New Jersey, northern New Jersey, southeastern New York City, Long Island, and southern Connecticut. So you can find that, by the way, on Google Play. Just search meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and you see it right there. And I'm going to throw it up on the chat really fast. Sorry for the quick switches here of the what you're seeing on the screen, but that's because of what the window capture does that I'm using. And there's the link for you, so you can take a look at that. And if it's absolutely free, go ahead and download it. Also, welcome to those of you who are joining from the SS Storm Chase and Forecasting Team page from South Central Pennsylvania and North Central Maryland. Good to see you on board. I write a lot of stuff for their website, ssstormchasers.org, so you can check that out as well. From New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Storm Watch page. Welcome aboard. Also, a big welcome to you. That Google Android app would suit you well. So take a look at that. It's absolutely free. And of course, the folks from my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and also from Angry Ben's Angry Weather, who does nycweathernow.com, which is my other website. Welcome to the live stream tonight. All right, here's the U.S. radar view. We've got rain, and on the northern fringe of this, we've got some sleet and freezing rain moving through Maine at the moment. You can see the remnants of the storm from the Central Plains and Upper Midwest, and that spiraling signature of the upper feature as it moves across northern Illinois and through the Chicago area and on up through southern Michigan, and the snow that's on the northwest fringe of that as it all starts to turn to the southeast. A little bit of snow action still going on back through Nebraska, and that's why they have the winter weather advisories up. In the southeast, you see that line of thunderstorms that's developing here inside the area where we have the tornado watch. A little bit of activity moving across North Texas at the moment, and nothing going on at this time in the west. We've got a little bit of patchy areas of snow in parts of the Rockies down into New Mexico as well. But as far as widespread rain is concerned, it's fairly quiet in the western U.S. at the moment as we wait to set up for the next weather system that will be coming in to California in particular along about Wednesday. So I want to take you on a ride of where we're going in the long range. If you were on yesterday, we kind of really went in depth into what's going on with the upper air. Nothing too much really has changed from yesterday. We didn't expect that it would. And we have the brand new GFS to look at. So we'll illustrate the problem here, first off, in the short term. And I'm going to take you, we're going through the weekend here, and there's that system that we just went through that is moving away. And it leaves behind this jet stream pattern that looks, well, not very pretty. This is a picture of what the jet stream pattern looks like across the U.S. come Tuesday morning. So I'm going to go to the paint box so we can take a look at what this all means, and also going to give you here the wider view of North America, so you can see the whole pattern in play. And we talked yesterday about the upper air pattern being rather messy. You've got short waves kind of running around all over the place. You have the system that just came into the west yesterday. That is evident by some of that weak precipitation that you saw across New Mexico and into Texas. It's a rather weak system, and as the bottom part of that jet stream just kind of gets all stretched out, that short wave just really stays rather weak. And then on top of that, you've got a separate northern part of the jet stream, which is not really all that strong, by the way, with short waves in that. The first short wave that you see to the east, that represents a cold front that's going to be coming through later Monday into Monday evening. It won't have much with it, but it will start the trend of colder temperatures that we're going to see through this week across the eastern part of the United States. And then you have that second short wave, and we're going to see another push of colder air coming in for Friday. So that actually is represented by a third short wave that is further upstream that I didn't draw a line for. And the arrows kind of indicate how the flow is going. But because all these streams are staying separate and weak, you're not going to really get any kind of storm development. Sometimes when you see a situation like this, if you time, you get these short waves to time out, you could wind up seeing some kind of low developing near the coast. And that was what the models were indicating back days and days ago. In fact, there were arguments among the models. Some of them were actually trying to take lows over the Great Lakes. That is not going to happen, obviously. And the reason is that the models have had a real difficult time with what's going on up in Canada. Also, I've drawn a big circle around the system that is going to be the system for next weekend and into the early part of next week. And that is the wrapped up upper air storm that you see here on the map off the California coast Tuesday morning. And that is going to be coming inland sometime on Wednesday. So we have a pretty messy upper air. And by the way, this is one of the folks that I follow on Twitter. Some of you may follow him too, Cranky Weather Guy, who's actually I don't know if he's a cranky weather guy, but he's pretty good. And he made a very good point this morning, and this is something that I've said from time to time, and I think it bears worth repeating. All of you that when you start. You root for, when we talk about the indices and the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO, which is a measure of how much blocking there is or isn't in the atmosphere in the North Atlantic. I think there's such a fixation to that what you don't realize is that sometimes when it's around, if you're looking for some kind of storm development, if you're looking for snow in your future, if you've got too much of it, it acts as a suppressor. It acts as a way of keeping those southern stream systems further south and getting ejected out to the east off the East Coast rather than bringing them up toward the coast. And this is a situation that we're seeing at the moment for this coming week. The NAO is actually working against you. For me, I think it's over. It's vastly overrated. For snow lovers, I would just much rather would just take my chances with no NAO. And we've seen many snowstorms along the way that have come without a negative NAO. That is just one of many factors. So I guess this is a good way of just reminding you that you can't get wrapped up in all this stuff. So I'm going to jump ahead now. We're going to move on to the European model. I'm going to switch to the European model because this is going to illustrate the problem with what's happening down the road. And when that system comes in to California, it's going to be moving in the southern part of the jet stream. The northern part of the jet stream is going to remain relatively active. And when we're looking here is next Sunday, you have the flow along the east coast from the northwest, and that northwest flow goes all the way down into the Delmarva Peninsula. And then you start to get into the flow from the southern stream system, which the European shows a closed upper low sitting in northeastern Arkansas. This is a very suppressed look. With that northern jet the way it is, it's going to be very, very hard to bring any kind of storm that comes out of the Gulf states and moving it up the eastern seaboard. If that northern jet stays there, that system's going to get ejected out to the east. And I've drawn that black arrow to indicate that. That being said, if this is the case, that northern jet is also supplying cold air. And that cold air is going to be wedging southward into Western Virginia, down through the Carolinas and into Georgia and into the northern parts of the Gulf states. So if this look is correct, this actually could be a winter event for the Southeast, for the interior Southeast for next weekend. I'm not saying yet that it is, but if you have this suppressed look, and if you have this system in the southern stream is vigorous enough, then this indeed could be a snow producer for, say, North Georgia, western South Carolina, interior North Carolina, and maybe even into southern areas of Virginia. But if you've got that northern jet like this, it's going to be very difficult to bring any kind of precipitation much further north than, say, the southern areas of the Delmarva Peninsula. Early speculation, but again, this is just one of many possibilities that we were looking at. I have to tell you honestly, from what we've seen in how models have been behaving in the last couple of weeks, in what's just happened going into this system for this week, the trend is always your friend in weather, and things don't repeat exactly, but they do tend to rhyme. So it would not be a shocker to me if ultimately what winds up happening is that northern part of that jet stream exerts enough of an influence where it keeps everything suppressed down to the south. We have one more view I want to show you, and that's the GFS. Okay, now the GFS has it a bit differently because the GFS has a much more relaxed look in the northern stream. So unlike the European, where that northwest flow goes all the way down to the northern parts of the Delmarva Peninsula, if you take a look at this, and this is for late next Sunday, so a week from just about right now, the southern part of the northwest flow is running across central New England, okay? Then you go into central New Jersey, you start to get involved in the flow that's going around the upper low that is representative of that storm that's coming into California. This has a much more robust look to it in the southern stream because the north is less suppressive. The short wave that's off the coast, off to the far upper right, is further along, and that causes that northern part of the jet to retreat a bit. This would suggest that you could bring up a coastal low just offshore and run it up toward Cape Cod or just east of Cape Cod. So this would be more of a threat with regards to snow for the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic states emphasizing the coastal areas versus the inland areas, and then into southern New England, Long Island. But the GFS's problem here is that it might have this overdone. It may have that southern stream system overdone, but more importantly, it may have that northern part of the jet stream underdone because of what's happening here for the first part of this week, where the GFS completely blew what it expected for early this week, where it was trying to build a ridge in between the storm that's pulling out now and the system that's moving across the southern part of the jet stream. So it was just a complete miss on that part. So it would not surprise me if it winds up going the Europeans' way. But now that we have the new afternoon run of the GFS, why don't we take a look, and we're going to see if it's starting that trend now, or perhaps it's remaining rather stubborn and is thinking, nope, not yet. Going to keep sticking with what I got. So here's Tuesday's look. And hello, move along, please. Why is it not going? Let me try and reload. All right. Got stuck there, so I can't get my jet stream map to move. Hang on a second. Let's try that again. All right, so you know what? We're going to try it a different way. Let's see if it'll respond. All right, so here's the jet stream as we go through the week. Here's that first system for Wednesday, which is a non-event, of course. There's nothing with it. Here comes the short wave with the cold front for Friday. That's going to bring in a reinforcing surge of colder air. And now you watch that system on the lower left. I'll back it up for you. The system on the lower left that comes into California starts to move across. The same time, the jet in the east, the trough begins to move out. Now, I'm stopping it here for next Saturday night. Notice in southeastern Canada, there's another shortwave swinging around. Okay, so that's important because that might keep that jet more suppressed. Let's see what the model has decided to do with this. And there's that shortwave. We go into Sunday, starts to pull out. There's your southern stream system. Looks like that shortwave has a little bit of impact now because the northwest flow goes down to about New York City. And then you've got that whole southern system kind of getting ejected out to the east. And here comes another shortwave trough early on Tuesday in the northern part of the jet stream that basically kicks that southern system out. All right. So I think the European today may have set the table here for what's going to happen down the road with this system. That it's going to be more of a threat for the southern areas and less of a threat along the East Coast. That is, it's going to be more of a threat to southern areas and less of a threat to northern areas. Let me see if I can get my keyboard. There it is. Now I got my keyboard to work. All right, so backing it up on the surface. And so this is late. This is starting with Monday. So here's our cold front. If you look across upstate New York and back through Ohio, a little bit of snow around the Chicago area coming off the lake tomorrow. We bring that front through. It's just basically cold and dry. We're now getting into Wednesday. You got an arm of rain coming into California with low pressure moving inland. More of the rain this time in Southern California, drops down into Arizona, New Mexico. You start to develop a low in Texas, and you have cold air. It's going to get pretty cold here next Friday and Saturday here. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a couple of days with temperatures in the 30s or just in the 30s, at least down my way, and even colder as you go upstate and into New England. There's another cold front here on Saturday coming into the Great Lakes. Low pressure sitting just north of New Orleans. You've got snow breaking out. If this is correct, if you've got that system vigorous enough, you're probably going to see snow in places like Kansas, in through much of southwestern Missouri, northern Oklahoma, North Texas. And then you have the low moving across the Florida Panhandle. One of the things I would suggest here is that the model is probably underdoing the damming of cold air down into the Carolinas and into North Georgia. So that is something we're going to have to watch. If it winds up being even more suppressed the way the European is, then you're going to definitely see that area of snow extend southward. Now, it does get to be all snow here by the time we get to Sunday because you've got that high sitting over Lake Huron and snow in North Carolina into southern Virginia. And then the low kind of redevelops well east of the Carolina coast here at this point. And there it goes. It's just going to get shoved out to the east because of the front. Look up in Canada and watch that area of snow that drops down from the Great Lakes. That's that shortwave, that next shortwave that I described for early next week that basically comes down and just picks it up and punts it out to the northeast. That is an entirely logical solution to everything that is being shown here with the players that we're seeing with the upper air. It's very interesting when you look at these models. A lot of folks get really wrapped up, with snow maps out 7, 8, 9 days in advance, and they seldom give any context to it with the meteorology, except to say that, well, this is what the model is doing, but this is not what I'm forecasting. Okay, well, then why are you showing it then? So who cares that that's what the model is doing? The model's doing it because it's printing a low at a certain point. It's printing a certain amount of precip in the cold air. The model is you take that precip, the precip in liquid, you divide it by use a 10-to-1 ratio, and you plot a map. That's really what the model is doing. It takes a snapshot of the atmosphere at a given time, and then it just kind of figures out where this is all going to go down the road. That doesn't tell me anything. Okay, that does not tell you anything in terms of what's happening in the upper atmosphere. And when you look at everything from the standpoint of what's going on in the upper atmosphere, you really do get a sense of all these different gears that are in play and how each one is having an impact with the other. So my takeaway at this point is it's Sunday night. We've got another whole week to watch this to see how it plays. I tend to think that we are going to see that northern part of the jet stream be more important. There still could be a couple of surprises along the way, certainly, but right now I really would favor the idea that the northern part of that jet's going to keep everything suppressed. You're going to have the southern part of the jet relatively active. As long as that system doesn't get completely squashed, I think that is going to create a snow event across the southern states. Where exactly at this point, I don't know. I'm saying the southern states, that's a pretty big area. That is going to be more of a short range problem, but you certainly would have to think that with the way, when you've got a northwest flow over the northeastern U.S. down into the northern parts of the mid-Atlantic states that doesn't get out of the way, that is not going to be a scenario that's going to bring a storm up the East Coast. It just isn't. You always have this problem of a delicate balance between the northern part of the jet, which you have to have something to bring down cold air. So you want that northern jet to be there somewhere to feed in, cold air if you're a snow lover. And at the same time, if you've got too much of it, then you're going to get this suppressed look. If you have not enough of it, then you're going to wind up with a situation where you could take a storm that's going to want to go up toward the Great Lakes. And that means that as a snow lover, you risk it the other way. Of course, if you're a snow hater, you're jumping up and down here with both respects. With both ideas, the suppression idea or the Great Lakes track idea, because you don't want it in the first place. I kind of trying to keep a balance between everybody. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people like to ski, some people don't. I am a snow lover, but that doesn't stop me from being objective with this sort of thing. Now, Casey Red Dragon, the parallel GFS. I knew somebody was going to ask this about the parallel GFS, and you know what? If you want to take a look at it together, we can do that. I'll bring that up. Those of you who don't know what the parallel GFS is, what they call it a parallel because it's running side by side with the regular GFS. That is the new upgraded GFS model, which they're going to switch to. They do the upgrade, then they spend some time working out the kinks to it. The little they tweak it a little bit, and at some point it will be ready to um, go become the operational model, and then that's what it will be, and there won't be any parallel GFS anymore. We don't have the new parallel GFS. We have the old parallel GFS, and I have to tell you, the old parallel GFS was very much like the European was. Taking that low across the southern tier, you can see the robust snows. This is pretty much what the European did. The parallel GFS matched it very, very well, actually. Maybe a bit too far north with the northern extent of the snow. It only gets to about Washington, Baltimore on the northern fringe, and that's it. And then the low just gets kicked out to the east northeast. The upper air with the old parallel is very much like the GFS was, where it's got this northern jet. You can see it here. The southern part of that is running right to about New York City. And then you've got the southern system, which really can't lift up because there's another shortwave coming around. Again, looking Canada, you got this arm that's swinging across James Bay. That's another shortwave that prevents this system from lifting up. Now, there's always the possibility that the model's wrong on that, and that's what we're going to have to look for coming down the road. If there's no shortwave there in that northern stream, if that shortwave is there but it's a lot weaker, then it might give you some room to maneuver here where you can get this system from the south to lift up along the coast before it gets kicked away to the northeast. But we've got to wait. We got to wait and see. But that's a player, and you have to. You're going to just have to wait until at least Monday or two. Certainly through Monday, probably into Tuesday or Wednesday to get a real feel for what the situation is with that particular system. Also, this is a good example too of how futile it is sometimes to just go out, beyond the first week because of all the variables that are out there. There's just way too many. The more short waves you have running around, the more problematic your forecast becomes because of the fact that you've got too many players and too many possibilities of things going wrong. So always bear that in mind. And let's see, Dio, maybe no storm next week, but things could change. It's too early. It's a 7 to 10 day time frame. Yeah, of course it could. And as I said, the north is going to have to change a bit, and it's going to have to change in that kind of delicate way. But the way it stands now, you would certainly think that you would favor the areas further south for the possibility of some frozen or freezing precipitation next weekend. Cullen, the parallel expected to be operational in January. Okay, that's good to know. So we've got another month, probably a little bit more than a month before that happens. Bio Group Inc. Yes, I would agree with you. Actually, the European even more so. This that suppressed southern look would definitely favor your area as opposed to areas up to the north and east. Frank Sorolla, you're asking about Nashville. Let's resolve the issues with the upper air going forward, and then when we get to the middle part of next week, we can figure out who's in line for frozen precipitation with respect to that next system. They couldn't get the first snowstorm correct even on the day it happened. No offense, Joe. Okay, well, none taken. That goes with the territory. It does happen. I'm still not 5,000 subscribers. I'm still not bought with the idea of this getting so suppressed. Well, look, it may not. I don't know. No one knows yet. If the models are overdoing or underdoing the North. I'm just saying that based on what's just happening for this week with this lead system, if you think back with what the models were taking lows to the Great Lakes, well, that ain't happening. Then they were trying to take lows up the East Coast. That ain't happening. You're getting a low that's going to form way out east of North Carolina and just go on its merry way. Again, the trend is your friend, and weather patterns don't repeat exactly, but they do tend to rhyme. So with what just happened now, there's a tendency for that northern jet to be more important, and models may not grasp on that until we get, say, inside the 7-day time frame. So it shows up in the long range, the model trying to pull the jet out, pull the jet out, pull the jet out, and then in reality it never does. But I got to tell you, quite honestly, from what I'm seeing, it's hard for me not to lean with the idea that there's going to be a more suppressed look in the eastern part of the U.S., which would make it cold and basically cold and dry through next weekend and into the first part of next week. Okay, so we're talking about the week of the 9th and going forward. Where is the freezing line during this? Oh well, that Casey, if you look on the maps, I mean, it's just basically where you go to snow to rain. So, but actually, I should correct that, because of the fact that in the south you get that cold air to drain at the low levels of the atmosphere. So the 32-degree line winds up being well south of where the rain snow line actually is. Um, you know, from the standpoint of where the maps would put it, you probably could make an argument that it's somewhere down in North Georgia, near or northeast of Atlanta, somewhere there. But that's not useful here at this point, because we're talking about a week away. We'll see next weekend if the system makes a westward jog. Cullen, westward jogs are perfectly reasonable, and certainly we have seen this go on for the last several years, where models have been way too aggressive in pushing systems out to the east, where the northern part of the jet stream winds up being weaker, and you get more of a backed flow. What I mean by that is that the flow along the east coast is a little more southerly, rather as opposed to southwesterly or west southwest, and you bring these systems wind up being further north and west. If you can have that northern part of the jet stream be weaker, and the southern part of the jet stream remain vigorous and not get too squashed up, then you might have a shot at that. But it's not a call that a forecaster is going to make right now. That's a call for late this week, late this coming week, when we have a firm grip on the general way this whole weather pattern is going to evolve. Michael Azara, models do change. Remember the day after Christmas 2010. First they're saying lighter snowfall, then suddenly they change to a major hit. I would just say that that was different. Those situations are different from this, in that you wind up actually having a really dynamic looking upper air. And so you know that there's going to be something big someplace. And what winds up occurring is you get, the sort of model fluctuations that happen in the short range. And I particularly remember the 2010 one, the Boxing Day one, because of the fact that the models at the last minute for one run kind of took it all away and then brought it right back, but had it evolve just slightly differently, because there was multiple short waves running around, and it kind of picked out the wrong one. I don't know. That's kind of going back into my head with regards to the forecast dilemma at the time. But this particular situation at this time doesn't really look crazy dynamic. Okay, dynamic wise. You've got some decent short waves running around, but at least at this point, there's nothing here that would suggest that you're talking about anything major. But let's see. We'll see how it. We're going to just have to wait and see how it all plays out. Central Park, as Scott Briller points out, in New York City, this last time it snowed on Christmas Day was in 2002. With 5 inches. And that was, as I remember, also where temperatures were around or just over the freezing mark. It was a heavy, wet snow, and I drove in it because it snowed heavily on my way to I happened to work to be working that day, and I had to drive in it, and it wasn't fun. It was actually, as I remember it, it was one of the most difficult drives I had because I was coming down from Westchester, where it had changed to snow over a couple of hours earlier, and they didn't plow. It was Christmas Day, so there wasn't that much in the way of salting and plowing going on the road. So driving through that heavy, wet snow was not that different from what happened a couple of weeks ago here. The only upside was that there was not a whole lot of traffic on the road. So that made it actually a bit easier. And then once I got into New York City, the main roads were wet. When I got into the city line, the highways were mainly wet, so it made it a bit easier there. But getting there was a bit of a struggle. And let's see, is the Icon model, is the German model. Casey Red Dragon, I don't look at it on a daily basis. I kind of look at it every once in a while. It's not one of the ones I go to. From what I've seen, it has some problems. Uh, I would not go to it as my first or second choice. I would go to the Canadian before I go to the Icon. We'll put it that way. I actually would love to wish we had some decent maps of the UK Met, because I do like that model during the wintertime. Um, it does hit the UK Met does pretty well sometimes under certain circumstances. I haven't really looked at it here for this next system. I don't usually look at the UK Met until we get really inside the short ranges. I think then at that point it becomes relevant, because you're struggling with making decisions and you're trying to gain some kind of an edge, and the UK Met can sometimes give that to you. Okay, we're going to wrap up the live stream tonight. Let me give a big thank you to everybody. For those of you who are in the New York City, Long Island, northern New Jersey, the lower Hudson Valley, along or south of Route 84, southern Connecticut, south of 84, and Long Island. If you have an Android device, consider downloading my weather app on Google Play. It's called Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and I put the link up on the chat board. It's absolutely free. Okay. Now, if you want an even stronger weather experience, you can consider joining my Patreon platform, and that will give you a whole lot of stuff to look at weather-wise, and you get to message me whenever you want, and I do respond in a timely fashion. That is a $2 a month subscription, and that's the link to my Patreon page. A number of you that are on here tonight are part of that, and you've all made some very, very nice. You've said some very nice things, and I really, really appreciate it greatly. So there's the link to the Patreon page. What else do we have? Oh, one other thing. Uh, I appreciate all the support that many of you have given my channel here on YouTube, and all the other things that I'm doing with websites and everything else. Um, the Let me just stop 1 second. John Schultz, I'm hoping any day now. I'm just waiting for Apple to give us the approval to put, and they'll put it on the App Store on Apple. They're very slow in the approval process. I'm not sure what the issue is. There were a few minor issues that we had to take care of. We took care of them, and now we're just kind of waiting for them. So we're waiting for a response from them. But as soon as it goes up there, I will be putting posts all over the place. So stay tuned. It's coming. Again, just to go back to what I was saying, I know a number of you have been very supportive of what I've been doing. I really appreciate it. There is one other, there's one other way you can do it. It doesn't really cost you anything. If you shop on Amazon, I put the link up because I do have an Amazon link. We are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated site. So if you shop on Amazon and you go there through my link, you get your stuff, and Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin. They put some stuff into my Christmas stocking. Let's put it that way. And as I said, it doesn't cost you anything. So I appreciate those of you who have gone that route. All right, so going to leave it there at this point. Thanks very much for being here. Rizzo, why do these big storms seem to form around full moons or new moons? Well, I mean, you've got a full moon and a new moon. That's every 28 days. You got a full moon every 28 days. There's a new moon. I don't think you see all the storms. Right now, we seem to be in a period where these storms are actually forming around the peak tides. That just sort of a roll of the dice. There are folks that uh, believe that there's some kind of connection between the two? Actually, that's a good question to save for when I have my colleague Joe Rayo on. So we'll save it for him. we'll he will be able to address it because astronomy is his big deal, and he has talked about this one other time. So hold your question for the next time you see him on, and we'll get him to answer. All right, so that's it, folks. Thanks very much for being here. We will, and thanks to all of you who have joined from the various other sources, be it my weather app or from SS Storm Chasers or from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Storm Page or from Angry Ben's Angry Weather or from my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. I've had enough. Have a good day.